Okay, welcome. That sound is basically a sample from a Moog Voyager. So what we have is micro Ornament and Crime that's essentially doing the sequence. It's running quite slow, but we'll look at that one in a bit more detail. Kind of got a variety of modulation sources kind of running through the sum output and also from the inverted output. There's also something coming from the Ochd, which is then being attenuated and so on over there. Over on the Rossum, we've actually got three sources coming in. The pitch source is in green, which is coming from the Ornament and Crime. And then we have some attenuated sources for linear modulation and so on. And then I also have another modulator which is coming here from maths. Sorry, I lost track of which green cable was which. The Octocontroller is being used to essentially drive the Ornament and Crime, and that's essentially that's just giving a clock source. The reverb sound, or the effect that we're listening to, is actually coming from the Milky Way, the endorphins. I mean, if I take it off and make it dry. So now, of course, you can hear all of the imperfections of the sample. They're not smoothed out. Obviously, it's a single sample that's being transposed as it goes along. So you get that, you know, the sample being played at a higher pitch than it was sampled at, and you get all of the kind of the artifact type stuff. You can also hear the different modulation sources being used as well. And so the attenuverter for channel 2 on maths is actually really important because it provides a static voltage that will either increase what's coming out of the sum output or decrease it. And this particular one is going to the bit reduction, which is under this Mutate button that you can see here. So under the Mutate button is where you sort of find this really interesting idea that it's sort of sweeping down, and as the modulation source increases, the bit depth is then reduced. And that's essentially what's going on there. And it gives you this kind of quite really rich kind of distortion in some ways. You can just hear it on the edges. So that's the dry signal, and then wet. Obviously it takes on a completely different character as it smooths out. Reminds me a little bit of like some of the stuff you might do in like using clouds or any of those kind of granular kind of synths. So you can feel there where the bit reduction, the level of the CV value is increased, and how much that changes the sides of the reverb. Have a listen again. That's what we have going there. So let me walk you through the patch, and then you can, it's up to you if you want to sort of make something like it, I don't know. Let me take out all of the modulation sources. That's what it sounds like without the modulation going on. Okay, so that's what we have there. Then need to remember which CV sources went where as well. So this is A. When you're accessing sampled channels, you might want, if you hold down channel, then it won't play the sample that's in there. If you don't hold down channel, then it will be audible when you click it. So, you know, at the moment I've got separate outputs, you won't hear it coming through the stereos, but you know, it's worth kind of keeping in mind. So pressing that allows you to kind of access the various parameters for this particular channel. It's in stereo, so you've got left and right. So channels 1 and 2, and that's the two outputs here, and they're both going to the endorphins over here, and then the channels are coming back out to the startup on the other side. So what we can see here is that CVC is being used for pitch information. So the pitch information is coming off of Ornament and Crime, as in this green cable here. So we can hear that's the pitch information. We'll have a look at the Ornament and Crime in a minute in terms of the sequence that's going on. So we've got that. CVB is being used for linear FM, and that's coming from here. Now this is going through the Zlob, so I'm using another source of attenuation. Okay, so this yellow cable is coming out of channel 3. So channel 3 is basically a wave that's actually inside the Rossum, and I'm using that to modulate the Moog Voyager that you're hearing. So that's under an additional sort of attenuation control. So let's have a listen to that one. So you can hear it kind of kick in round about 50% of the way through. It's quite a nasty sound. It's actually just a sine wave, if I remember correctly. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's a sine wave. It's C3, you know. But once it's kind of being used as a linear sort of modulation source, use it differently. So I've not attenuated this on CVB here. We could attenuate it. So 50 is basically 1 volt. So we could reduce the effect of this, or we could attenuate it down, right? So you can see as 200 it's really strong. So that's kind of what we've got going on there, that's kind of disrupting the sound of this waveform. So we've got that. In terms of level, the level page, everything is the same as it is. And then what we have is CVA, which is on this cable here, is being used for the bit depth, managing the bit depth. So I'll put A in, take it out. Now the rhythm of this this modulation source is basically from the different cycling of channel 4 on maths, taking the trigger output from the end of rise or the end of fall here, which then goes into the trigger input of channel A, which then essentially is basically here in the attenuverter for channel 1, using 2 as a static source, 3 also as a source that controls what's coming off the, sorry you can't see, 3 that's controlling what's coming off the Ochd here, right? And then finally 4, which is controlling whatever the envelope shape is here in terms of its strength. So this is quite a complex modulation source, and I've also got the Rossum. It's basically set up as -79. So let's have a listen to. Right now, what I'm going to do is put the CVA. Basically increase the value to -100, then go back to 0, and then go positive, so that we can hear the effect of this on the mutate parameter. So let's try that. So you can hear there's quite a big difference between the positive representation in terms of +1. We get this kind of glitchy kind of click. I feel that that's whenever the voltage source drops down to a level enough to be able to engage the kind of the bit reduction, but it's only sort of momentary. Seem to get better results going negative. So the thing to kind of look out for here, I suppose, is that at the point on the edges of the sound when you start to detect the mutate parameter, and then at that point, in terms of the bit reduction, at that point it's up to you to decide how much depth you actually want to have in terms of this modulation. That's kind of it really. Let me just turn this up. Around about -67, we can hear a little bit on the edges. I don't know if you can hear this, it sort of sounds like it's in threes. It's like it's, the way I hear it, it sounds like it's kind of playing a triplet figure. You can just hear it, just on the edges. And therefore, the more we increase this parameter, the more it actually pokes through. Kind of up to you where you sort of want to hear this. I think there's that combination of elements now. So let's have a listen to the mutate parameter and the modulating linear FM source that's coming up 3. Those two things together. Kind of the idea there. I mean, it adds something, and I think when it's in with the effect, in terms of the shimmery type sort of reverb effects, you actually get to appreciate that particular voice or that particular effect. One of the things we haven't looked at in terms of this mutate sort of parameter, in terms of the bit depth and the bit reduction, is the interaction in terms of math. So let me just sort of run through some of this. So what I'm going to do first of all is remove the static voltage of 2 and also remove the shifting voltage of 3, which is coming from the Ochd. So we're just going to listen to, and actually I'll take 1 out, we'll just listen to 4. We're going to introduce 2 static voltage. So even though we can't really hear 5, even though we can't hear channel 4 at the moment, by bringing up the voltage on 2, it will bring it up. So you get that kind of a cumulative voltage. So that's that one. So the end of fall, let me bring the volume down here because it can get a bit irritating, sorry, I'll start shouting. So the end of fall that is here on channel 4 is then used as a trigger source for channel 1. So let's bring channel 1 up. So it's being treated much more like an envelope. Let me bring up channel 4 as well. And I'm going to take some voltage from 2, so the voltage is going to go negative, and see what that does. So the question is really sort of managing or sculpting these voltages so that you sort of get something that just kind of pokes through. You might not necessarily want it to be full on like that, of course you can. And then finally there's the voltage source coming from 3, so let's try that one. Make it negative. So this is a moving voltage that should really be sitting with something else, either the static voltage of 2, which helps create a bit more movement, a bit more kind of shaping, negative here. I'm going to bring channel 4 up. Kind of trying to find a kind of a way that the voltage sources all kind of complement each other to kind of come up with another rhythm for this kind of drone idea. Great, and now I'm going to add the linear FM source from channel 3. So now that's kind of kicking in. This is it with it out. And this is with it at maybe 20–30%, 50%. Okay. So now I'm going to try it with the reverb. So that's the wet-dry sort of set 75% or thereabouts. You can hear the reduction in volume. And I'm going to bring the effect up itself. Really just adjusting it to kind of work out is there a good sound in there or not. It's kind of what we're just moving things around. This is dry. let's have a look at the pitches. Basically having a 12-step sequence, and the sequence is basically going, assuming that 0 is C. Let's just normalize it to that. So it's going C, and it goes up +7, which is the 5th. Then it goes up a semitone from there to 8, which is the flattened 6th. And then it goes down to 5, which is the 4th. So basically those notes would be C, G, A flat, F, and then back down to C at 0. And then it goes to +7, the octave below. It's kind of got I mean, I would have probably have done stuff in reverse and done it as minus, but anyway, I get it. So here it's the 5th and octave below, which is 7, and then up to the minor 6th, which is the A flat, and then it goes still up to the 5, which is the scale degree 4, and then we have the minor 3rd, which is +3, which is the minor 3rd, and then we're finally back down to C again. So those notes are basically C, G, A flat, F, C, C, C. The G below the octave, or in the octave below, the A flat in the octave below, and then up to the F, to the E flat, and then back down to the C. So those are the pitches. So let's have a listen to those. Now these pitches have also been directed to the linear FM modulation source. So let's have a listen to that as well. Now that sort of tames this additional modulation source a little bit because both it and also the Voyager sample that we're listening to are now sort of addressing the same pitch relationships. Then we get something that's a little bit more harmonious. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing with channel 3 in a minute. Okay, I'm going to bring the effects back in now. Okay, so I'm going to bring the pitch modulation back in, which is here on CVA. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please remember to like and subscribe, and see you next time.